And I'm going to continue and go into part 3 here, and I'm not going to go over a lot of the land structure and things like that. That took a little bit in that last video to explain what's going on, so I'm going to try to make this a little bit faster here. There's a lot to do, but I think it's going to take about 5 videos to get through this, or 3 more anymore. Anyway, and then the people in their land. Okay, wait a second. I got to go up here and say what I found last time. And when I read it, these are the things that I needed to correct. I have still questions, so that's a reminder for later. It might be there for a long time, but you understand that if you listen to the last video. I needed to add this guy's name because he was in charge of what's going on. The word "they" give him money. It sounded like those that had just got done working on the altars gave him the money. So the text wasn't reading that good. Needed to remove those 2 words. And I know the word "said" was there at the end of one of those lines that I went and made all small point or 8-point text. But I needed to add that there for the text to read smoother here. In case those who made screenshots and are catching up, you see the corrections that I've done. Okay, caught that up. Now, what I need to do is to try to tell you that it was the people in their land, and that was the people that were from Jordan. Like I said, they're living on a mount and they're looking down. Discouraged our people, and to frighten us from building, they got counselors. You don't hire a counselor to frighten people, okay? They would have been raiders to come down there and raid them. Remember, these people were coming as captives. They were just they hadn't yet, let's put it at harvest time. They hadn't been able to harvest a lot. They were probably still getting things straightened up, cleaned up. They probably have established themselves because we're now in the 2nd year of the king that's down or sent them, which was Cyrus. So maybe they've got now maybe a full year down there. Okay, so you wouldn't hire counselors against them. You would raiders to come in, and what they would do is probably tear down some things while they weren't looking. The scaffolding would have probably been pulled down, but the object is they were trying to frighten them from building. So now you can start seeing there was a struggle going on here. And then it says all the days of Cyrus king for Persia. And this is what I said. That's just not true. It's Babylon. Oops. It's Babylon is the truth, and we can get rid of this. But you can see that if they're trying to say Persia, and for those of you new here and you didn't watch last video, this is what I was going over. The text is saying that it's actually at the next king after Nebuchadnezzar is when they return to fulfill Daniel's prophecy of 70 years, not 70 days or weeks. But he was reigned, but something happened to him until the reign of King Darius. Okay, so now we have this king passing away and a new king. Now, remember, there's been no information up there sent back that we have in the text about Cyrus wanting to know about his creator's house. Is it being rebuilt down in Jerusalem? What happened here, they had hired those raiders to keep causing this delay of building. So that means they didn't have when I talked about how many people had come down, maybe 30,000, maybe, I don't know. And that would have been women and children. 50,000 is a very large number. I don't think it reached that many, but you can see that they weren't able to form an army or even have people watching for these raiders to come in, okay? They were still trying to get an existence of just a way of life to reestablish here. So now it comes down to, now in the reign of this guy here, okay? There is no description for where this guy is, okay, in this text, okay? Now, what I did do, though, is I went down below and found out this guy here, and I removed some of his name so I could say Tate is his name instead of using the name that they had here. And it was their governor, which means the governor on the other side of the Jordan, okay, those that were on the mount. They had a governor. They really, when our Creator said it was going to be desolated, it was desolated. People weren't established there. They were probably using the highway to go down to travel to Egypt as merchants. Yes, that's the highway that goes right straight through. But the object is that everything else was probably not built up correctly. So it says, in the beginning of his reign, Tate the governor, in the beginning of his reign, yeah, then it's just going to be Tate, their governor, wrote an accusation against the Judeans in Jerusalem. Did you notice how I used the word Judeans? Because it's the kingdom, and that's how they would have looked against those people, because they too were saying that we know who you are. But we already have who is the king here. It's King Denarius. So this here verse is not needed, okay? And this guy's name here needs to slide in here, okay? And I copied that from below. Now, where did I get that? Here, okay? No, I got it still mentioned. It's still farther down, okay? Okay, here. At that time, whatever his name was, Tate, their governor of the province beyond the river, they had assigned governors, just like I told you David was assigned, or Daniel was assigned as the governor. They had another governor over there for their people. Daniel was only governor of Israelis, not of the whole territory, but the governor of the Israelis, okay? So here's where I'm grabbing the name from, and they called him a governor, and he's from beyond the river, and this is where the king is going to reply to him, okay, to reply to this writing that he's going to send here, okay. So I just want to, I guess I shouldn't get rid of all the red, because I got to keep it in the video for the video, but for future uses I need to have these red marks in here, I guess. So now we have, in the beginning of Darius's reign, this king wrote the accusation against the Judeans in Jerusalem. Now that's where this other guy's name had come into play. And like I said, it was this guy that had come over and asked them, let us help you. And they refused. Well, this guy and these guys are kind of harassing the governor that, look, they probably didn't tell him that our raiders aren't slowing them down, but there's work going on over there, and you as governor better put a stop to it. And then they would have told him about the past and how Nebuchadnezzar came down and wiped them out, and now they're trying to down here to rebuild. So they did not know about, these guys here did not know about King Cyrus giving them a decree, except for this guy here. Now it was told to him in the last editing, but that's when he decided to hire raiders to come to slow him down. So we have these characters here that are under this guy that most likely caused him to write this accusation against the Judeans in Jerusalem. Now what the text is also trying to introduce is this guy here, okay? And this, they're saying, in the days of our tax, take whatever this is. Look, let me put it all 14 so you can see the words. But I need to short it down. I was just going to call them just art, but I'm going to arta. Okay, but the object is I'm getting rid of this. But this is a king that they're trying to put in. And here it's not mentioned as a king, but down here it is. Wrote to the king, okay? Now, I'm saying it's Darius because up here is Darius. He's now the king, okay? There wouldn't have been another king on their side of the property, okay, on the other side of the land. Remember, Babylon was huge. There was nobody greater than them. They come all the way down. They took care of everybody, and they took them all the way down to the Egyptian river there, the river for Egypt. And then that would have been Egypt's territory here. So they aren't talking about Egypt, these people belonging to Egypt. They had to write an accusation against them in Jerusalem. So it means that they had to go back, and if they come from Cyrus in Babylon, Darius is in Babylon, so they have to write back to him, not this guy here, okay? So this is out, and this guy is out, but I'm going to shorten his name up because it is going to make a difference when we get to find out who he actually is a king for. Because it said of Persia. Again, they're trying to stick in a second king from Persia. Like I said, trying to make the timeline longer than what it is. But we now know it's this guy here, and I'm putting that text in here, okay? Now we have, they wrote an exact accusation. I should find a smaller word for that to help 12-year-olds to be able to read. Wrote a complaint against Judeans against the Judeans in Jerusalem. This should be in. Because you remember, they're also to rebuild Jerusalem back. So now we have this guy, and this guy wrote to the king, okay? Even though this guy was the governor, wrote an accusation, so he probably had these guys write it for him using this guy's name, because it has to come from somebody of importance for the king to be able to read it, okay? Wrote to King Darius, and the letter was written in Aramaic. Now, I don't know the languages that were spoken at that time. And Jesus never spoke in Aramaic, excuse me. He was talking to the poor, and the poor weren't bilingual. Okay? He spoke to the Hebrew because they were Hebrews. So, they wrote the letter in Aramaic against us in Judah, or Jerusalem. Okay? Now, if Aramaic was the language for Babylon, we would know, because here they're just trying to say it was translated for this commander, and then wrote as another letter. But we'll just put it as it was written in Aramaic against us in Jerusalem and was sent. Okay. Now, to King Argus as follows, and we know that that is not true. So this guy needs to be added here. As follows, then wrote, whoops, how come I didn't do that? This seems to be the only text I didn't do. Maybe it was supposed to be all yellow, that's why. Wrote. Yeah, because this is not true. Samaria is up by Galilee, Lake Galilee. Yeah, this is not true. This is not true. This needs just to be removed. Okay. Now, notice that I've got 4 verse here and the 3 verse here. Okay. So now it comes up to, do I get rid of all this? Okay. And you can see he wrote the letter. Okay, even though I can explain it why these guys are here and why I needed this guy's name, now I need to get rid of the text. Okay, so this here, that is if it becomes a 3 verse. Okay, and we're going to find that out real soon here. See how it's all 3 verse? So it needs to be 3 verse up here. But it's very important to understand where these names come from. Okay, wrote an accusation against the Judeans in Jerusalem, and I wouldn't need the word wrote because that's already action up here from this. So to King Darius. The letter was written in Aramaic against us in Jerusalem. Okay, so this guy is the one that wrote in Aramaic. Okay, if we believe I've actually got the right format. Now, again, I had to replace his name with Darius because we know that's, like I was saying, when I'm reading it and putting it in order, I don't trust the second one when they try to stick other people in and try to change things. Because over the years I found that usually the first names are more truthful. Okay, but they are trying to stick this guy in as a king for Persia, which we know it's not 200 years later or 150 years or whatever they say. Then the letter is being described, and this is the copy of the letter they sent to King Darius, your servants in the region east of the Jordan River. And I showed you why it was on the east of Jordan, and it's not beyond the Jordan River. That would have been south of the border, and that's not the truth. If you're hiring raiders to come up there, they're not going to come all the way up from Egypt into that area. That's, let's see. Okay, I've got a time mileage down here. This is the river of Egypt that I told you about here. And Jerusalem is way up here. It's more sensible that the people that were still living here were assigned under King for Babylon. Down here, they didn't come down and overtake Egypt, so Egypt pretty much ruled, and this would have been the natural borderline that they had established. Okay, this desert in Saudi Arabia is very hot. I think this is Saudi Arabia, and I think Jordan stops right here, somewhere in here, something like that. But this is so extreme, nobody lived here, and actually a lot of this is pretty much desert, I believe. But to understand the situation, this is not saying that it's beyond the border. It's east of the Jordan River. And I went into detail on that in the last one. Not Jews. Jews don't believe in Jesus. Okay, we're talking about believers coming back, so they're Judeans. And this is the verse I would get rid of to keep 3 verses. And it was that they're rebuilding a rebellious city. See, they didn't even talk about the house our creators were told to rebuild. They're talking about, they're noticing that there's now work going on in the city to rebuild the city. And then it's kind of like, yeah, if their foundation is whatever, but this is a double from down here, so I can get rid of that. Let it be known to our king, see, not the king, it would be our king, so it would be referring that they are part of his kingdom, that if this city is rebuilt and the walls are finished, they will not pay tribute, nor taxes, nor toll. This will damage the king's revenue. Okay, so now you know that it is under Babylon's control. So it has to be east of the river and not from Egypt. Because we are your servants, not in the service, we are your servants, not of the palace, your servants. It is not fitting for us to see our king dishonored. We have sent, and this should be to inform. We have sent to inform our king I could add a word here like letter, but I'm just going to continue here. We have sent to inform our king that a search be made in the recorded, not books, archives. Now, what is known about the recordings of Babylon is that they put them in clay so they couldn't change it, like what they've done to the manuscripts here that we have. Example, it's easier to scrap out a scroll or write something completely different if you're the evil ones, not saying there's a creator who created everything. Okay, here it is talking about the archives being recorded in the kings in Babylon, so nobody could change the records at all, wrote on clay tablets, and they used a stylus to print or make their markings in clay that were hardened, and you couldn't change it. Whatever it said it, just like this. Okay, and they kept, these weren't books, these were clay tablets, and they were kept probably on shelves in order of the king and maybe about his daily life to have a record for Babylon. Okay, so that's why it's the recorded archives. Okay, I gotta come up with a smaller word for that. I don't know if 12-year-olds would understand that, but then sometimes you just can't change words to make them simpler. You will discover in the archives and learn that city was a great city, not a rebellious city. They were not rebellious. They were the kingdom that was, or they were the ones that when everybody tried to conquer them, they went out and blew them away. Okay, and you got to understand that the timeline of the time they got from the promised land into the, or until they established the promised land, until the fall of the kingdom or the nation Judah, I think that's about 500 years, maybe 600 years. That's a long, long time in any history to establish as a kingdom, okay, or a nation. So they weren't rebellious. They were rebellious because they didn't agree with Nebuchadnezzar coming down and saying, we're taking you away. But our Creator told them that if you don't return to me and quit your practice onto the female goddess, I'm going to send you into as captives, because that is about the commandments. The commandments are, have no other God beside me, okay? And they did. And that's the thing. They weren't convinced our Creator was the creator of everything that you see or know. They pretty much said, oh, no, we can sit and have this sex with a so-called female goddess. It's repeatable. And she is what makes everything around here and everything. So, I don't know what they call her in India. I don't know which one of those females. I know one is death and then the other one gives life or something like that. But anyways, so it's a great city. And then it's damage to the king and provinces, and they have incited revolt. This is just really not true. And then they try to describe in the past years, King Nebuchadnezzar. I needed to add that because, as you can see, there's no text here that can say that I can put either one of these in here and replace King Nebuchadnezzar. Had that city laid wasted, okay? And that means it was burnt, it was just destroyed, and they went through. That's the object of why it was desolate. Our Creator's prophecy was desolate, make the land desolate, and that's what happened. So there wasn't many people there that were left. There was a remnant, but we now know that it's only been 40 years, so they couldn't have had like generations of children. Those that were left there weren't really, they were the elderly, they were those that were sick, so there wasn't that many, but the ones that were in hiding maybe had escaped, but you can't say there was more than 5,000 of them. But the object is now this group has come down, and I put an estimate of less than 50,000, okay, 40,000 let's say. And they're reestablishing Jerusalem here. And they're informing the king, well, they already said this has already been said. When the walls are rebuilt, you will have no possession west of the Jordan River, not beyond the Jordan River, but the west side. Now you understand why I had to show you the land structure in the last video. Then the king sent his answer, and we know this is the guy. There's no text here that actually tells us who the governor is until later, and there were governors that were put over these places. It wasn't a commander down there, and it wasn't to a scribe. They would have, this is just not true, but to this governor and to the rest of his counselors. So I left, they weren't colleagues. A governor doesn't have colleagues, okay? These guys have colleagues, okay, or not colleagues. They would have been, if this is a commander, these would have been captains. So they screwed up on the text there. But the object is that they're counselors for this guy here. And those three guys that aren't existent anymore in the text, that's just what happens to the text. Now, what I've got here, though, is I've got, again, 4 verses, okay? The king sent his answer. Well, it should have been to Tate, their governor. Whoops. To Tate, their governor, and to the rest of his colleagues. And we know they're east of the Jordan, so we really don't need this anymore. And ta-da, we know the subject and where everything is. We don't need to be retaught. And now we have the 3 verses here. The letter you sent, which he said, has been translated and read before me. So here, Babylon does not have the same language as Aramaic. Notice that, okay? But it would be that those that were on the other side of the river had their own language. Okay, so what language ever that was, that isn't what Jesus spoke in, and it wasn't popular in Babylon. It wasn't in the Hebrew company. Egyptians speak Egyptian language. So wherever Aramaics or this Aramaics are, I guess I could say they were from Petra. If anybody's really interested in looking at that, it's would be these guys had put their language out, and that's what the people were speaking down there. That's where Aramaic comes from. And then an order. He is not writing a decree to them. He is writing an order for them. A decree is something that's a mighty thing that's cause for greatness. Decree is a king's statement. This isn't really a king's statement. It's an order. It was issued by me, and a search was made. He didn't need a decree to go look for his stuff in the archive. And it has been discovered, that city, and it says, has risen up against kings in the past days. This would have been past years, and rebelled and revolted and have perpetrated. None of this is really true. David did that, and we're talking about 500 years, 600 years later. That mighty kings have ruled in Jerusalem and governed everywhere by them. Not all, but it has to be everywhere by them. Okay. East of the Jordan River, they paid tribute and taxes, and tolls were paid to them. And that would have been King David established it, and then Solomon kept that going. And then it looks by this text here that happened all the way through the rest of the years, because after David destroyed them, there was no kingdoms over on the other side of that area, such as in what I was talking about as old kingdom of Edom, and the people below would have been, what was it, the Amaleks. They would have just been stragglers around that area, but they would have been now paying tribute. And all the way up, before the Chaldeans were the Chaldeans, they were paying tribute. Damascus was paying tribute. So they had all this in their records, and he's seen that. And he's saying, now I issue this decree. Now he's actually issuing a decree. You don't need a decree to whatever. But he says to make these men stop so the city is not rebuilt. Okay? Not that it may not be built. It is not to be built. He's defiant. He doesn't want them to fortify the city and then have to send down people to conquer it. It's just a waste of manpower and other things of importance that why cause this problem. So, and he's putting a warning on it. Beware of being not negligent, but careless in carrying out not this decree, but my decree. And it is that the land not be lost. And it's kind of like I had to, these words, yeah, they might all have to be put in gray. I would say that's what I should do right now, is put this text in gray, because I am pretty much redoing everything here. So, because a detriment to loss, that's too big of a change. But so what we're going to have here is me adding this text here. Okay, so the land is not lost by them fortifying the city and then rebelling. Now they got this as soon as the copy from that king, which we know is Darius, not this guy here, but they're trying to stick him in. I mean, Man, if they wanted, they really tried to corrupt the text like it didn't happen for 200 years. Now we have the document was read before these three other guys. Okay. Now it makes sense that these three guys and this guy's still here causing the problem. But you don't need these guys. These were important. It was this guy and his buddies here that were raiding, causing the problems and forcing the king to write, or their governor to write. They went in haste to Jerusalem because they're all happy, and stopped them by force of arms. Now they had a backing from the king to go and actually have men with weapons come and force them to stop working from working on YHVH's house and the rebuilding of Jerusalem. See, I just used the word Jerusalem from here over to here, and it is to cease. In Jerusalem cease, and it was stopped. So I'm kind of in the rebuilding of Jerusalem. So I'm not, I'm not, how can I say this? I'm using the same description, just reversing the word order. Okay. And it makes more sense instead of ceased and stopped. They're both the same. So, but we've got the word stopped up here. So, and the rebuilding of Jerusalem. Okay. This took place in the 2nd year of the reign of Darius. Okay. So how can they keep putting this king in here? Okay. Here it is. I didn't need to change it, didn't need to add it. Okay. And we know that this needs to be Babylon. Okay. Okay. Now, this was in his 2nd year of his king, his rule. So I don't know exactly how many years now. This might be year 3.5 since they've been there. Something like that. Because we don't know. I had to put the word in, not the 2nd year. It had to be in that year, okay, of his reign. I need to look at the dating of all these dates later, but as I'm going through this right now, that's what the text is saying. Now comes the prophecy. And this is supposedly a book of a prophet, okay? His prophet Haggai. Now there we go. It is not from Ezra at all as a prophet. Ezra was never a prophet, okay? We now know that this is supposed to be written by Haggai. But the problem with that is when I cleaned up the Psalms, yeah, I don't want to pull that up. In Psalms, there's probably going to be a description of a link to them. You can read what Haggai said. So yes, Haggai was around. I believe when they returned, I can't remember what he had prophesied. Okay, I'm going to look it up. I'm curious to know if Haggai here is the right name. Whoops, I need to go up a little higher. Go here. Oh, wait a second. I got them all stuck together right now. Okay. Okay, I've got Haggai here because it was talking about took them as captives. Okay. So I have really Haggai not existing at this time, or he's a very young prophet at this time, and he's now older and he returned with them. Okay? Because some of this text Okay. Anyways, there is another one text here. Let's get like this so I can scroll a little bit faster. Sorry if this is causing those. Yeah, I guess since you know that you might have epilepsy when you see stuff scroll fast like this, I'll let you know when I'm done scrolling through really quick here. Because it looks like I have Haggai at the bottom here. Because I've got them placed in order now of the times the text was speaking about. Okay, I've got Haggai as the last prophet here. Let's see what we've got here. Okay, now remember I just told you I made that guy's name smaller, so you'll see that I've taken that name out and I'm using this king here. So the words here are with this guy's name is used, and it's telling us he's the high priest. So when I go through and put the Ezra in and start mixing these together, this is what I've got to do, is I've got to come to this text and use the correct words here. Okay. Yes, because it's the prophecy from Haggai. I don't know. Yeah, this has to be Haggai at the time. And see here down here, I had questioned these two names before, and like I said here, they have it as it is in Daniel. And so that's a little bit different. But see, this guy's name here had appeared. His name has appeared. So we now know it's more text of actually the truth that Haggai was the prophet at this time. Okay, like I said, here's that name, here's that name. This name wasn't mentioned in the text, but the object is now we know that this is not, Ezra is not the prophet, okay, even though this is listed under prophets. And the rebuilding, let me see the time. Okay. And he prophesies, and he's prophesied to us in Judah, okay, and Jerusalem. So he was going around and telling the people that he knew were cities, because remember, next to Jerusalem, there was a couple other, was it Bethpage? Bethany is there. Bethel is a little bit over to the right. So there is a few cities in both areas. I don't want to get that text. I got to get working here because she's maybe 7 hours to go here in this. Anyways, that's cleaned up. He's going around, he's prophesizing, and then they decided that we're going to listen to the prophet, and they began rebuilding his house and Jerusalem. Okay, now comes this character. This is where I found this text as that governor, and it says again from beyond the river, and we already know he's from beyond the river. We don't need this text here. And he came and asked them who decreed this rebuilding, because now he has probably gone over there and he's hearing that say that when they sent the men over there to stop them, to put their guards up and the armed force to stop, they probably told them, hey, look, we're under orders from King Cyrus to rebuild, so you're countering a king's order. So I can see that the governor's finally waking up to the position here, and he's over there wanting to find that answer out. So They answered Tate, and I took his name down, but it was here. Oh no, I added it, it's in green. And then this text here isn't needed. I'm looking for a 3-verse format, and it continues here. They answered Tate, which would have been who up here? These two guys here that were building the house. He come to the house to see what's going on because it is right next to Jerusalem. So he's not going to go looking for the governor. He come over and he's asking those two guys, and it's they answered him until our report we sent to Darius. Report needs the word we here. We sent to Daenerys because when you got the order you come over, they sent their own back up to him, okay? And a written reply is returned. That's pretty much, that's what they're saying is until it's returned, we're still going to be doing what we're doing because we know that our letter says Cyrus decreed this and you guys didn't send that part. So that's why I'm saying this guy was worried that it was a decreed. Who did this? I mean, so he's got to figure out the problem, and now he understands that they're waiting for their reply. So the next text, they gave him a copy of their report. They gave a copy of the report to Tate, their governor. And again, these words are here in the text. So again, Tate is that governor. And he belongs to Babylon, king. So they're under the same king that they sent to Darius. Okay. And the report which was written to Darius our king, peace be with you. I added these words here because peace doesn't mean much until you say be with you. Now, myself, I would say that Daniel wrote this, okay, this letter. Daniel would have been able to put a great big long letter together, not just this text, but it would have been what happened to Nebuchadnezzar and really tell him the story of what had happened and check all this on his record. This is just going to be a shortened hand down of this. So, but I know that Daniel would have known the story. So to see this text here, this really has kind of been, a lot of it is probably chopped out about all this knowledge that happened up there and why Cyrus would have been the one to say, I witnessed this too, and their creator told me to send them there, okay? Because he does call him the Hebrew God, his creator as well. He believes all out, no doubt. I've seen too many things. I watched people come out of fire. I've seen Daniel not being eaten by. I've seen a voice from the sky come down and tell Nebuchadnezzar he's going to eat grass, and then he's going to give him his king back. So he was witness of a lot of that. That's why he was told, and why we know this is the story right after Babylon, or in still Daniel's time. Let it be known to our king, we left from your province. That means wherever the king existed in Babylon, that because they use provinces, the word province for areas that to rule over, because it was so large, they had these governors rule around. Now remember, Daniel would have been aware of all this because he was very close to the king, okay? And we went to Jerusalem, and the house for the greatest God, let it be known to our king, we left from your province and went to Jerusalem, and the house for the greatest God. And so that means that when they're looking up the text of all these words, Nebuchadnezzar would have probably put in there that he's the greatest God because he's a living God and he did this to me. And when I was putting the people in the flames and fire, these guys walked out because they were not going to disobey their creator. That's why when you see the word greatest God, this would have been something that would have been found in the records. And it is being rebuilt with granite blocks, not huge stones, but with granite blocks. It was hewed out. I explained all that before in the other video. You want to know what's going on there. And with beams being laid for its walls, inside they're going to build wood walls around, probably cabinets in the wall to divide the two, and the structure on the, and this work is going on and succeeding by our hands, not in their hands. This text, when you read it and you see all this stuff that I'm taking out, this is almost like a double like of what they wrote against Judeans. But when it comes down here later, it will reverse. See here, this is the text I'm talking. That makes it, if you keep reading this, you'll see that it sounds like, oh, this isn't the part of this letter, and yet it's the 3-verse format. This text might actually went up above this text here, but it's not really needed. So here I'm going to get rid of this, and this is, see, it was built and finished, and but the only thing is the story that's being told here, if you correct a few words, not much, a few words, it becomes clear that this is the letter that they sent to that King Darius. And a decree was sent to rebuild his house and to rebuild this city, not structure, not finish, but to rebuild this city as well as rebuild his house. Okay. Now it's kind of going back in history. Our fathers provoked our God and gave us, and notice how he's using the word God in the text. The text actually has the correct title here as God. I didn't have to change it. It wasn't something that you've seen me change the word Elohim to creator instead of the word God. Because in the beginning, our creator created, and I did the 3,000 verses and checked that title needed to be changed. This title is referring to how the outside people, the pagans, would be thinking about a God. And so this is why it's being wrote that way to another guy that's up there who really probably they don't know, because they don't know much about him. They've been away for now, what, 3 years, and don't know what this guy's belief is, but he must have had a God. So to say God, that's how they understood it. Gave us, our God, gave us into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king for Babylon. He destroyed Jerusalem, and that house, he destroyed Jerusalem, and from that house, and it shouldn't be, let me see, I need to be, let me try it this way, from his house, and from his house, don't need the word and, took our people to Babylon. Destroyed Jerusalem, oh, and his house. So why did I change this? Oh, I need, and his house. Okay, destroyed Jerusalem and his house. And so I do need the word and here. And then what he did is he took the people back to Babylon, okay? Then I had to add this, because this is describing what I was saying earlier that should be in the text for him to realize that He made himself known to King Nebuchadnezzar by great wonders. Then he proclaimed, now this is Nebuchadnezzar proclaimed him as the only God. Okay, so when he's now going to look in the records, he's looking for what happened to King Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, and when I said that, Cyrus said that he was appointed by our Creator to do this, because the word means that a king just doesn't take orders. So when the word was there, appointed, and I didn't change it to mean that it was there, this means that our Creator somehow, probably in a vision, told Cyrus to go down there and rebuild this. And Cyrus was the one that would have also witnessed everything else. And in the first year of Cyrus as king for Babylon, because he also claims in the text above that our Creator made him king over that over the kingdom, and that's because our Creator killed Nebuchadnezzar's son, who would have been following the lineage, killed him and his father within, I think, like a week. They both died. As king for Babylon, he issued us a decree to rebuild the house for his God, because he would have had to agree that I witnessed enough that I have to use the word his God, meaning that now when you go into Cyprus, you look to see what he assigned, and he's saying that's why he's sending it back, because he knows why to send the stuff back. He's the one that gave all the orders. Read what he wrote. And return his gold and silver utensils that Nebuchadnezzar had taken. Okay. Now, I have to stop there because I'm trying to keep this. This will be video 4, I think, down here. But what I'm going to do is come up here, clean the text up, and show you what we got here. And then I will also show it at the beginning when I really clean it up and see if I need to put more correcting words in the text. Seems like I got through a little bit more than last time, so that's a good thing. Yeah, video 4. Okay. And what I need to do is I need to erase it down here. Get the cursor there. You'd think I'd understand how to put some speed into the text here when I'm doing this. I've done this dozens of times. This is where I grab the 8 point. That's why I got macros set up to do this, just this click here, and got rid of 260 words just like that. And sometimes when I do that, it makes 2 spaces. So yeah, 64 double spaces, and since I got that many, I do it again. 5 more was found. I close that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab it all and just say take all that out. And I'm going to take this and bring this over here, paste it, and I'm going to bring it down smaller. So as I'm doing it, you can get your screen captures of see what actually has taken place here in the text. And we did pretty good. There's a lot here. Whoops. And it was a format change here, but it was designed that way because they're talking about the letter. And I thought that was quite unique in the text, because actually it still has that same style of writer writing this text. And that's very unique to see the original format, or the first writer's format, how it stayed true, that this was all here. This is the first writer's writings, although I had to add some text, but and I'm hoping you're reading it, not really listening to me here. Whoops. Now this would have been a space where, yes, I can say chapter 2 is started because it's now, well, it would be second part of 1, so I guess just leave a space here. And we're still in that 3-verse format. And I'll probably go one more time just so you can get the screen capture when it's all cleaned up here, or what I'm just cleaning up here. So you don't have 60 different spaces here. Okay, and like I said, this will be video 4. So now let me keep that, and let me go up here to the beginning. Okay, go ahead and take a screenshot and then clean it up. Boy, it's hard to get that one little click on the mouse, but and there we go. And I'll see you in the next video.